if we are gathered today, it is as part of FEE's 40th anniversary celebration. FEE, Foundation for Environmental Education, has been indeed implemented in 1984, 40 years ago. But I would say what better for this occasion than listen to you, Lesley Jones, president of FEE. To highlight FEE's work, network, and programs, we thought it could be even more relevant to ask some young reporters for the environment, which is one of the 5 programs running by FEE, to lead this interview. And that's why I'm glad to welcome and introduce you, Linda and Sabrina, young reporters from Montenegro, and Renza, young reporter from Mauritius. As winners of the YRE quiz taken last week, they are ambassadors of the YRE program for this interview. Before giving them the floor to introduce themselves, I would like to address you, Lesley, a huge thank you for accepting this invitation. Please, Linda, Sabrina, and Renza, the floor is yours to introduce yourself more than I did.
Hello, everyone. I am Sabrina from Mauritius. I am 17 years old. I am a student of PSSS College. I have joined the PSSS YRE Club in 2019, and it was such a great experience. It's an immense pleasure for me to meet each of you today.
My name is Linda Joksimovic. I'm coming from Berane, a small town in Montenegro. I go to Radomir Mitrovic School. I'm 14 years old. I'm very happy because I'm the winner of this project. I'm glad because I was able to participate in this project. Yeah, that's true. I'm Sabrina. I'm from Montenegro. I live in a small town named Berane. I'm 15 years old, and I'm very happy to be here and to have a chance to attend this interview.
Thank you very much, the 3 of you. And now it's time for you to start to lead this interview. Please enjoy.
Could you present yourself in a few sentences, please? Who are you? How long have you been part of FEE Keep Wales Tidy? When have you been elected as president? What leads you to become FEE's president and CEO of Keep Wales Tidy? What is your background, etc.?
Wow. Okay. Well, I think I could probably take most of the next hour just answering that first question. So I'll try and be brief. But first of all, before I answer your question, can I just say how delighted I am to be here and to be able to meet you 3, people like you, the young people who are part of the FEE programs, are absolutely critical to everything that we're about. Without you and without what you do, without your caring, without your action, we're nothing. So I just want to say a big thank you, and what a pleasure it is to meet the 3 of you as well, and actually to meet Florian, because I don't think we've exchanged lots of emails, but I don't think we've ever met until today. So nice to meet you too, Florian. So just a little bit of history then, I think, about the fee structure, which hopefully will help to make my answer clearer to your question, Linda. So FEE, as you know, is an international NGO, an international non-government organization. So it's global, and it's a member-based organization. So every country who is a member of FEE has one organization, and only one organization, who is the full member for FEE. So there are just over 80 countries now that have a full member, but we also have a number of associate members from different countries, which is how you start the process towards becoming a full member, and we also have some affiliate members. So my job that I get paid for is I am Chief Executive of Keep Wales Tidy, and Keep Wales Tidy is the FEE member from Wales. So as I said, that's what I do day to day. And that's what earns me my money, so I can do all the other things that I want to do. And FEE, Keep Wales Tidy has been a member of FEE for many years, for more than 20 years, well before I became its chief executive. So in 2010, I became chief executive of Keep Wales Tidy in the early first part of the year. And within a few months, I was attending the General Assembly of all the FEE members from across the world who come together every 2 years. And at that time, we could come together physically in a place. Nobody's done that for the last 2 years, but we could do that. And that was in China. So not only was that at my first ever FEE General Assembly with all these countries from all over the world, which was amazing, I was paying my first visit to China as well, which was also fascinating. So that was my first direct experience of FEE. And immediately, I can't tell you how incredible and remarkable an experience it was to immediately feel part of this huge international family where we all have the same passion, the same goals, the same things that we want to achieve. So it was very exciting. And I got quite involved in the meetings and the sessions. And I think I probably said a few things that maybe were a bit challenging to the then FEE president, because I felt so passionate about things. So that was my start. And then a year or so later, I was contacted by the FEE president, and we'd had contact since, the then FEE president, a man named Jan Eriksson, who is a remarkable human being and has been one of my great teachers and mentors over the years. And he just contacted me and he said, how would you feel about standing for the FEE board? So standing for election to the FEE board. So hadn't even crossed my mind, but it was a very exciting suggestion. So I did, I took it up, and the following year at the next General Assembly, which was in Dublin, I was elected onto the FEE board along with other colleagues and friends from other parts of the world. So that's how it all started. My passion grew, my involvement, my understanding. I was very privileged to represent FEE in different events around the world, to take part in the board meetings and so on. And then through those 4 years, it was discussed at the board, and I discussed with Jan, the president, and it was agreed that the board would put me forward to be elected by the members as the next president, which is what happened in India in 2016. So that's when I became president of FEE. Again, an honor and a privilege, but I'm also very proud that I am the first female president of FEE. That matters a lot to me, and I think it's an indication of the inclusiveness, the diversity of FEE. We currently have a board of 8 board members who sit with me on that structure. And I would just stress, I talked about Keep Wales Tidy being my paid job. So on the board of FEE, you are a volunteer. So, and you can only be on the board if you are from a full member country. So that's the way it works. So anyone can stand for election, but you have to be from one of the full members. So currently we have people from across the world on the board with me, from the States, from Mexico, from the Netherlands, and from Montenegro. So one of my current board colleagues is Sasha. Can't remember his surname, it's got a very long surname, but Sasha, who I've known for years, but he joined the board. So he is one of the board members since 2018. So I think that covered all your questions, all the parts of your question, Linda, I hope so.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Since we are here to celebrate FEE's 40th anniversary, can you tell us more about FEE, its 40 history, its achievements?
Okay, so I told you about the structure, that it's a non-government organization. it began in 1981, hence we're celebrating our 40 years. And in 1981, there were 4 people from 4 countries who decided that in order to achieve everything that we needed to achieve and wanted to achieve to protect and improve our environment, education was a critical part of that. So FEE was formed. FEE was started by 4 passionate people who believe in the power and the value of environmental education and education for sustainable development. And it began with the first program was Blue Flag, which again many of you will know is a environmental excellence standard for our coasts, for our marinas and our beaches. Eco Schools very quickly became the second program, and now FEE runs 5 programs. So Blue Flag, Eco Schools, Young Reporters for the Environment, which you are an important part of, LEAF, and which is learning about forests, which is another schools-based education program, which you may be running also in your schools, and Green Key, which is a program for the hospitality sector. So everything that FEE does is based around the delivery of those 5 programs. In addition to that, we may have particular projects that we run, which are usually supported by business, by corporate sponsors. But everything is around environmental education or education for sustainable development. I've mentioned the structure, I think, before in terms of membership. So I think that covers what you asked, Sabrina.
Thanks.
Why do you decide to join FEE? To say it in a different way, what was your goal when you joined this organization, and did you at least partially fulfill it?
Okay, so I think I've explained a little bit that my choice was to join Keep Wales Tidy. So that was when I applied for the job as Chief Executive of Keep Wales Tidy. And then part of that package, which I knew very little about at the time when I joined, was that Keep Wales Tidy was the member for Wales for FEE. So if you like, I automatically got involved in FEE as an organisation that were delivering the programmes in our country, just like you have NGOs in your countries running the programmes there. And I mentioned about my first General Assembly. So I think then that changed from being something that I was going to be part of anyway, just as a member country, to actually wanting to really be much more involved through the board and be able to play a leading part as a member of the board in deciding the direction that FEE would take, in deciding our goals and our priorities, in making sure that FEE was run in a sustainable way, both from a financial point of view, but also from an environmental and a social perspective. So that mattered and has grown to matter to me more and more as time has gone by. I think FEE is one of the most incredible organisations in the world. Because of what it can achieve, because of its reach, it's such a significant reach, but because everything is rooted, it's a global organisation, but everything is rooted locally. So whether that's a local organisation in country or local schools or local hotels or local beaches, and that's the power of FEE. It's not just a top-down big organisation, it's actually got everything rooted locally, and that's what makes it so important and so special.
Thank you.
Mine is the question. What is the most important lesson you have learned so far?
wow, probably a lot. I've learned about the power of education, that people will take action when they understand things and they understand how important they are. But that can only happen if you learn, and then if you experience, and then you can take action. So learning is critical, but equally critical is then using that learning to take action. So I think that's one of the most important things that I've learned. I've learned about the power of people coming together. So the power of network, how one person, part of a huge network. So, you know, as you know, Eco Schools is a network of 20 million students, how one person can have real power and influence, especially because they're part of that huge network. I've learned that however difficult things seem sometimes, you always have to hope, you always have to believe that we can and we do make a difference. And, you know, I've got children and I've now got a grandson, and I passionately believe in young people, what you do, what you offer, the difference that you can make, and how you will in due course go in and become the leaders and the policymakers and the business people of tomorrow. And that's another lesson I've learned, that you are the most important in all of this.
Thanks. Thank you. We have heard about the Gaia 2030 feast strategy for the next decade and its 3 pillars: biodiversity, pollution, and climate change. Can you tell us more about it? What is its main goal? We like its motto: together we can change the world, in which we fully agree, but we would like to let people know, maybe with one concrete example, what we are doing. How FEE is already making and going to make a difference.
Okay, so I think I need to give you a little bit of background again here and tell you a little story. Like many things that we feel now is incredibly significant and important, it might start in, you know, quite a small way, a conversation or something. And that's what happened with Gaia 2030. Again, when we were still able to meet physically, our board, so the 8 of us plus our chief executive Daniel and Ricky, who's our administrative director, we're all meeting in Greece. And the member for Greece picked us up in the car, picked up me and my colleague from Northern Ireland, who's also on the board. And in the course of that journey from the airport to the hotel, Ian shared with us that he was taking his organization in a different focus direction, that everything that they were going to do and deliver were going to be prioritizing those 3 big environmental challenges: so climate change, or mitigating and adapting to climate change, resilience to climate change, reversing biodiversity loss, and reducing and hopefully eventually eradicating environmental pollution. And in the course of that journey, I thought, well, if Ian's doing that in a small country like Northern Ireland, just think how much more we could achieve, how much more important it would be to do that across the whole world through all our members. So by the time we got to the hotel, I said to Daniel, I need to meet you now. I said, I think we should do this. I don't think we should delay. I don't think we should spend ages talking about it and wondering next meeting, are we going to do it? I think we should make this the top priority on our agenda tomorrow, and we should make it happen. So he looked at me and he said, okay. So the next day we changed our board meeting agenda. We put this there at the top of the agenda. We spent a good part of the day discussing what it might mean. Ian shared more with us about what his plans were. And by the end of that day, we decided this was going to be the direction we were going to take as FEE. So they followed a process of involving members, involving experts in those 3 subject areas from various organizations around the world in discussion and in developing the strategy. So it took a while. We didn't, once we'd made the decision, we wanted to be absolutely sure that we got it right, because as you've said, this is for the next 10 years. But we now have it. Our members formally approved it earlier this year. And so now it's underway. It's not as if we're starting again. FEE's already done huge amounts of stuff. Just to finish off on that point then, so as I said, it's not as if it's fundamentally different. We've been doing a lot of things for 40 years already, but I think that it's the change of focus. So we're saying the most important things, and I guess really, you know, particularly climate change, but climate change is so interrelated with the nature emergency and, you know, sort of tackling biodiversity loss and reversing the decline. And obviously environmental pollution, you'll know, you know, they're all interacted. So everything that we do, we look first and think, okay, are we doing the maximum we can in whatever we're doing? So that could be whether we produce resources for schools to use. Another decision we made a few years ago was to establish the FEE Academy, which at the moment is a sort of online learning route for our members and teachers that will spread out more and more. So the resources for those to make sure that we give as much information and the correct scientific information as possible for people on those subject areas, but then linking in, as I've said before, to taking action. So I think that's one of the key things. You asked one of the most important things. I think that's, you know, making sure we have sufficient resources there, making sure that through all the work that we do it through the lens of that subject. So we've recently had the Global Action Days, where the focus was around biodiversity and how to increase biodiversity and reverse biodiversity loss. I think if we're looking at you know, the Green Key, which I've mentioned as one of our programs, so an example of that, we would now be putting a lot more focus on asking the establishment, the hotels or the conference centres or whatever, to demonstrate what they're doing in terms of mitigating against climate change, or in their grounds improving biodiversity and so on. So we'd be asking those people who we're working with, you know, to also make that a priority. That would be a requirement.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, there's one thing I should share with you. Do you know why it's called, you can answer the question, do you know why it's called Gaia 2030?
No, I don't know.
No. And Renza or Linda? No. Okay.
No.
Well, you know, this was one of the most heated discussions we had. What were we going to call it? And there were lots of, you know, far too many people in the room trying to make a decision. And then emails going back and forth between the board and WhatsApp messages and so on. And we just felt we wanted something that reflected what we were about. But there was a bit different, you know, we just didn't want to say FEE strategy for 10 years. We wanted something. So Gaia is the Greek goddess of the earth. So Gaia is our Mother Earth. You know, I think you might use the phrase Mother Earth. So that's who Gaia is. So Gaia is a mythological figure, but she is our Mother Earth. So that's why the name came from.
Okay, thank you very much.
As you talk about the biodiversity, how would you define the terms ecosystem and biodiversity to a non-technical person or an average person?
Well, let me first say that I'm an average person and a non-technical person. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert. I've had to learn along the way, just like you are now. And in my, you know, nearly 12 years of being part of FEE and Keep Wales Tidy, I've learned a huge amount. So my starting point wasn't those areas, like, you know, like a scientist or maybe some, you know, some of the people involved in the sector. So let's give it a go as a non-technical person. Biodiversity, I would describe as nature. So it's everything that's living in our natural environment makes up, you know, the biodiversity of an area. So that would be the trees, the plants, the flowers, the shrubs, the grassland, the hedgerows. It would be the insects. It would be the birds, the mammals, all the living things that make up our natural world. It's really important that that is diverse. So you could have a beautiful green lawn and no biodiversity at all, because you haven't got the fauna, you know, the plants that attract insects, and the insects then take the pollen and the pollen is spread, or you haven't got the trees that contribute towards providing habitat and providing food. So then you don't attract the insects, and then the birds don't come because the insects aren't there. So it's really important that you have this biodiversity. So it's more than just, you know, a nice green lawn or something. As I said, it's everything that grows. And your second question, in terms of the ecosystem, that's how everything links together. So I think I've heard the phrase, it's like a biological community. So if you don't have that ecosystem in balance, then everything can go very badly wrong. So let me think of an example, a couple of examples of that. So for example, in our oceans. So in our oceans, we know our oceans are under threat in all sorts of different ways, you know, from pollution, from acidification. But one aspect of the problem in terms of the ecosystem in our oceans is the loss of the large predators. So there's been a huge loss of sharks or tuna, for example, who are the large predators. So they feed on the sort of medium-sized fish. And then those medium-sized fish feed on the plankton and the tiny sort of, you know, amoeba-like cells and so on. If you haven't got enough large predators feeding on the medium-sized fish, then there are too many of those and it knocks everything out of balance. So that's one example. Another example, which I think has happened in Denmark, which is where, Florian, are you calling from Denmark? Yeah. We can be anywhere in the world now with FEE, but that's where our FEE head office is, in Copenhagen in Denmark. And in Denmark and in other parts of Europe, Northern Europe, they're starting to, maybe even in Montenegro, I'm not sure, they're starting to reintroduce wolves. And as you know, wolves have not been part of our landscape for quite a while. And the reason for that is the ecosystem. So if you have wolves, they are then the predators on the grazing animals, you know, the wild animals, deer or whatever. And so it keeps those in balance. So you don't have too many of those animals who will then damage the grazing land, damage the soil, where you can't then sort of other flora, fauna can't flourish. So it's that community, it has to be completely in balance. And if it's not in balance, so if that biodiversity isn't in balance, then it creates all sorts of problems. And, you know, one more example, which I'm sure you'll be very aware of, is deforestation. You know, you chop down trees, you grow the wrong things there instead, like soy or palm oil, and that completely destroys the whole ecosystem and everything that life depends on. If you don't have ecosystems, life doesn't survive. And ultimately, if you don't have the right ecosystems in balance, that will actually jeopardize the human race. So biodiversity and balanced ecosystems are absolutely critical.
Thank you so
much. That makes sense?
Yes.
To illustrate the recent or older work of the NGO, what is the most impressive example, the most impressive good practice you have heard about within the FEE network?
You know, I think you might have got me there in terms of the most impressive, because there's so many amazing things going on. I don't know if I can think of a specific example, but I think I will refer again to the numbers involved, because I think that does really matter. You know, so I've talked about the 20 million students in eco schools, nearly 5,000 blue flags awarded, and you know the figures, I'm sure you might have seen these, and that makes a huge difference, because every time something good comes out of that eco school or that blue flag beach, then that's happening thousands, millions of times. So I think that that is really important. Some of the initiatives that I've seen in schools in particular, you know, which sort of warm the heart of the things that are happening in the school grounds. So, you know, creating vegetable gardens, planting fruit orchards, that brings so many aspects to life. So first of all, you know, the students you're learning about, you know, about how to grow, how to plant, how to take care of the crops. You're also being very practical. It's also fantastic for health and well-being, because you're outside, you're being active, and then you're producing food in the best way possible, locally, fresh. So I think those are some of the initiatives that, as I said, you know, really inspire me when I see all the things that are happening in school grounds.
Thank you.
I've thought of something else. Very recent. I was at COP26. And so I was fortunate enough to meet some of the YRE students who joined FEE at COP26. And they blew my mind in their, you know, what they're doing in their commitment. So just a couple of examples. Callum, who I think is 15, has researched, you know, he must be going to be a scientist or some sort of, you know, sort of academic. So he's researched subject areas around biodiversity and produced this very biodiversity and climate change, and produced this very, very extensive report. And then Jessie wanted to go to COP26. She lives in the south of England, and you might know that the COP was held in Scotland, which is hundreds of miles away. And she looked into how much it would cost her to go on a train and how much it would cost her to fly, not that she planned to fly. So on a train, it would have cost her £400, and on the plane, it would have cost £80. So that is something very, very wrong in our world at the moment, when, you know, the more sort of sustainable form of transport costs 10 times more than, you know, than the plane, which, as we know, is not the best way to travel from an environmental point of view. So she decided to cycle. So she got on her bike and she cycled 400 miles from the south of England to Glasgow. And then they spent the best part of the fortnight there, going to different sessions and interviewing different people. So that to me was very special and inspiring as well.
Thank you.
We had actually a question about it.
All right. Oh, well, I've asked another question.
That's completely fine. Did you read the I think it's 200 pages report from Callum?
No, I haven't read it.
Yeah.
No, it's on my to-do list. Have you?
No, I would like to, but yeah, same.
I have questions. As young reporters for the environment, we would like to know what you think of the work of the 500,000 young reporters every year. What does this program mean to you? Do you have a story in mind that inspired you and you would like to share with us?
Well, I guess I've shared my story, but just talking about the program more widely, for me, it has two very important parts. One is what the program can actually give to young people. So, developing the skills, the journalistic skills, developing the confidence to interview, to explore, to research, developing that structured approach in terms of that investigation, from a journalistic perspective. And then the other side of the coin is that approach of interviewing just opens the door. It's so logical, it opens the door to so many other people. So you can challenge, you can question, and they will listen, whoever that might be. So, whether that's a politician or a business leader, or a head teacher, whatever it might be, you have that opportunity through the program to question and to challenge, but also to make people aware of the importance of your views as young people, and your values as young people. So I think that's, to me, why the program is so important. I should have checked, I should have said there are so many different, sort of stories and, different incredible photographs. At the COP, we had a wall with some of the best young reporters' photographs from over the years. So that was pretty special as well. And then, there's been some great videos, which probably, arguably now maybe is one of the most impactful way that we can communicate, by getting the videos out in a very widespread way through YouTube or other routes. So yeah, there's so much that that is of value that you do as young reporters.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to sneeze.
As a youngster, what was the most unecological human thing you did unconsciously, and maybe also the most ecological thing you did consciously?
What, when I was young, or anytime? Sorry, was that the question, Ren? So when I was young, was that the question?
As a youngster,
Well, it was a very long time ago when I was a youngster. That was the first thing. So interestingly, in some ways, unconsciously, both of it would have been unconscious, because seriously, there was none of the awareness of the issues when I was young, none of the awareness that there is now, more widely in the general public. But I suppose as a youngster, I would just walk and cycle everywhere. You'd walk to school, you'd cycle with your friends, so I think that was just one of the things that happened, maybe much more so than it does today, where certainly in the UK, parents tend to, take their kids to school in the car a lot more and this sort of thing. One of the challenges that we face is that overuse of, of cars and vans. So maybe that's, looking back, and an ecological, gosh, what might I have done? I guess as a family, we did used to sometimes have holidays abroad. So, but then, you know, I've got mixed feelings about flights. I think, you know, there are some people who do flights every week, and those are the people we should be challenging, not maybe a family that saves its money to have one special holiday a year or something. So, you know, so let me think, what else could I have done unecologically? I'm sure there were things. Let me have a little think. You know, Renza, it's a very interesting question you ask, because I think one of the things that's happened since I was young. So when I was young, my parents and my grandparents were incredibly conscious about, you know, no waste, for example. So no food waste, litter, you know, never dream of littering, you know, when you were a child, because, so I think at that time, things maybe weren't, you know, some things were really bad, like we had a thriving coal industry here in Wales, which obviously, you know, had also, you know, creates all sorts of problems. But the way people lived their lives maybe was a lot, you know, without even thinking about it, was actually probably better for the environment. And it's maybe only in the last 20, 30 years, you know, where we've become much more of a consumer society, much more of a throwaway society, much less conscious about waste, you know, so we'll throw away huge amounts of food. And so I think that there's that period, and, you know, and I can remember, you know, maybe not as a youngster, but, you know, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, driving a heck of a lot more than I do now, you know, because you weren't as aware of how bad, you know, how a difference it would make if you chose a more sustainable form of transport. So I think it's probably the more recent past that people were really doing some of the worst things, you know, sort of in the last 20, 30 years. And before that, maybe, you know, because of the type of what society was like at that time, there wasn't so much damage apart from, as I said, things like heavy industry. It's a very interesting question, you know, but to think about the timings of things and, you know, how things have evolved because of the way people behave over the years.
Yes, thank you.
Which country is, according to you, the most endangered short term?
Sorry, which countries are most endangered short term, did you say? Yes?
Yes.
Countries, yeah. Okay. All right, well, again, I don't think this is straightforward, and it depends exactly what you mean by endangered, but you know, we've seen over the past year or two the damage and the danger that is happening all over the world. So, you know, whether that's been the highest temperatures ever recorded in Canada and huge forest fires in Canada and America, a whole island pretty much destroyed in Greece because of the highest temperatures ever recorded, and then huge forest fires. Dreadful flooding everywhere in the world, much worse than has ever been recorded before. Significant loss of life in Germany, you know, places that you wouldn't immediately think. So everywhere now there are signs of severe immediate damage to particular areas. But countries in the southern hemisphere, I think, are the most severely impacted because of extended periods of drought, which obviously then you know, completely destroys the ecosystem that we were talking about, and people can't grow food or harvest food, and then that has a huge impact on human life. And then in the longer term, of course, the island countries are in danger of potentially completely disappearing if we don't do something about rising sea levels. So that's a slightly longer term, but that's also obviously something. But I think hopefully now people are recognizing that climate change is absolutely here and now. And all those things that I've described, the fires, the flooding, the drought, are all because of human caused climate change.
Thank you so much.
One more question. If the planet could speak English and you were the planet, what would you say to its inhabitants?
Okay, well, if I was Gaia, then I would say, I need you and you need me. And if we work together, if you look after me and take care of me, then I will always be there to look after you. If you don't look after me, then there may be nothing left. So I would ask you, as your Mother Earth, to treasure me and to protect me, and I will always then be there for you.
Thank you. One last question.
Right.
What is the best answer Fee could provide or is providing?
Hope. We have to have hope. And as you said, I think one of you said earlier, we have to work together. So we do believe that our slogan, if you like, our strapline, that together we can change the world. So, and therefore that brings us hope.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's all from our side. That was really interesting. You are such a good storyteller, like it was really interesting for me.
Thank you. And thank you for all your really, really insightful, thoughtful questions. And again, as I said at the start, thank you so much for all that you're doing. And thank you for playing a part in providing what I believe can be a bright future for my generation and for your generation. Then guys, I've now got to get back to work as well after that very pleasurable hour spent with you all. So thank you very much, and you know, best of luck in everything that you plan and everything that you're aiming for your futures. And you never know, maybe our paths will cross again someday in the future. But you know, keep up the good work, keep up all the amazing things that you're doing in your schools and in your countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Take care, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
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 Bye.